Moving on to the next photograph. What are we looking at here?
This is Detective Mark Moretti reading the search warrant for the vehicle.
The vehicle in question, what is it?
I believe it was a Jeep Compass.
Is that the same that's indicated on that photo in the red lettered writing?
Yes.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in here? I'm going to zoom in here to the hood area.
That is another piece of evidence tape used to seal the vehicle in the same way that we sealed the premises prior to a search warrant. The vehicle and all of its entries are sealed prior to the search warrant being executed.
So, for example, now looking at the screen down here at the bottom of the passenger side doors, that red item, is that the same evidence tape we've been looking at?
Yes, it is.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in this image?
This is showing the front passenger side portion of the vehicle.
Moving on to the next photo.
This is showing the exterior of the front passenger side and rear passenger side doors.
Have you begun executing and searching the search warrant at this point?
No, I have not.
So what is the purpose of all these exterior outside photos?
All these are to document the vehicle in which I found it when I responded to the search warrant, and all photos are taken prior to execution of the search warrant.
So again, going to the rear door seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And the rear trunk seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
The initials MK that are on that, do you know who those belong to?
Yes, that is Michael Kelly, which
And
was my supervisor at the time.
You read my mind as to my next question. On the back of this vehicle photo, what is the tag number of the Florida tag that was assigned?
India Echo Kilo Delta 22.
For those of us not in law enforcement, can you please translate?
IEK D22.
The India Echo Kilo Delta that you just used, what is that commonly referred to? The alphabet.
The fanatical.
Going on, what are we looking at on this image?
This is showing the driver's side exterior of the vehicle.
And going to the seals on this particular item.
Sorry, repeat that.
The seals right here on this particular area or item of the door. Was it intact?
Yes, it was.
Moving on to the front door seal at the bottom between the front driver's door and the rear driver's door. Was this seal also intact?
Yes, it was.
As to the state of the windows of the car, had they been manipulated in any way while you were taking these pictures?
No, they were not.
Moving on to the final picture of the evidence tape here on the driver's side door by the A column near the hood. Was this evidence seal still intact?
Yes, it was.
What was the VIN or vehicle identification number of this vehicle?
3C4N JDD B2 JT 198929.
The first photo that we're looking at here was now inside the vehicle. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you're documenting in this photo.
From here, I took photos of the exterior of the vehicle. Then the doors of the vehicle were opened up, and as is, without anything being moved or disturbed, photographs of the interior of the vehicle were collected.
So you say without being anything moved or disturbed. What do you do to make sure that you're not contaminating any of the evidence?
I wear gloves prior to each time touching the vehicle, and that goes with touching my equipment, going back to the vehicle, and vice versa.
The front passenger side view that we're looking at right here. Later on are the items collected.
Yes, they are.
and we'll get to that in a little bit. With what area of the car are we looking at here in this next photo? My apologies.
That is the area between the front passenger seat and the door jamb for the front passenger door.
Okay. Next photo, what are we looking at here?
That is the front passenger side floorboard.
Moving on here, the seats, did you manipulate them in any way before taking this photograph?
No, I did not.
Moving on into the next photograph, what are we looking at there?
Those are gold caps for teeth.
And so it's clear that that's a close-up photo from this rear passenger door. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that is correct.
When we're looking out this rear passenger door, what are you documenting in this particular area?
I'm documenting the interior of the rear passenger door and the door jamb for the rear passenger door, as well as the seat and the floorboard of the rear passenger.
Moving on to the next image, what are we looking at in this photo?
That is a spent projectile.
So I'm going to go back a photo. Is that the same projectile that is down here?
Yes, it is.
Going forward again, what are we looking at in this image?
That is the rear passenger side floorboard and the items that were found there.
Continuing to the next photo, what are you documenting in this image?
In this image, you can see the partial back of the front passenger side seat, the, again, floorboard of the rear passenger side floorboard, the rear passenger side seat, and a projectile hole that you can see defect on the seat.
And so I'm going to zoom in on an area. Can you explain what you're talking about, the projectile hole?
Yes.
And you can use this screen to touch if you're to draw attention to certain areas.
I observed a defect in the seat that is later on gone into detail.
Okay. Moving on to the next image here. What are we looking at?
This is the rear passenger side seat as well as the rear center console, again, cup holders, and partial of the rear driver's side seat.
This area in the center with the two Sprite cans, is that how you found it, in the down position?
Yes, it was.
In this image here, can you describe a little bit about what's the red and white plastic item on the bottom on the floorboard? What is that?
That is a plastic bag.
Okay. What are you documenting in this image?
This image shows the trunk which had been opened, and in the photograph you can see the car manual and a jacket.
Did you disturb any of the glass? Did any of the glass move when you were opening that trunk?
Not that I recall.
What are you, in this next image, I'm going to go back one. Did you open the rear trunk to get better photographs inside?
Correct.
Is this the interior of the rear trunk lid?
Yes, it is.
Can you kind of describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to how the trunk lid is and how you're taking the picture so they can orient themselves in space?
Correct. In this photo, the orientation is staying at the back of the vehicle. The hatch trunk is opened up, and I'm looking upward at the interior of the trunk.
And so why did you take a picture of this white fuzzy stuff?
I observed a projectile defect.
Moving on to the next photo. What did you document here?
This is a yellow jacket that was found inside the trunk that I observed red stains on.
Why would you document red stains?
because of presumptively would be blood.
Did you do any presumptive testing at this point?
Not at this point.
Moving on to this next image. What are we looking at here?
This is the rear driver's side seat from the vantage point of the driver's side door. It shows the driver's side seat, the driver's side floorboard, as well as some of the cup holders and rear passenger side seat.
Next image, what are we looking at here?
This is also another photo of the rear driver's side and cup holder.
Next image, what are you focusing on in this particular image?
This photo shows the rear driver's side floorboard, which has a Gatorade bottle, a cap, and a white plastic bag.
Moving on to the next image, what are you showing here?
In this image, this shows the interior of the front driver's side door and somewhat of the interior of the front driver's side seat and floorboard.
Moving on to the next image here, what are you looking at?
This image shows the steering wheel, partial of the front driver's side seat, the center console, and the side of the front passenger side seat.
On the next image now, we have a little bit different. Why do you put these yellow numbers?
These numbers, at the time I called photo markers, now with my agency I refer to them as placards, so I might refer to them also as placards. But these placards show and denote items of interest that will later be collected, and it's easier to recall back to a certain item and to show where that item is.
As you're documenting and collecting the evidence, do you use these photo markers in your reports and notes?
Yes, I do.
So, to go back to the photo of 1, 2, 3, 5, where did you collect the items at photo marker number 1?
Yes, I did.
Do you maintain the liquids that are inside of them when you worked at the Miramar Police Department?
I do not recall.
As to photo marker number 3, did you collect the items of evidence that were there next to photo marker number 3?
Yes, I did.
Moving on to photo marker number 6, did you collect the gold teeth that were in that pocket there?
Yes, I did.
Item number 7, did you collect that item?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That was the spent projectile.
For item that's at photo marker number 8, what was that and did you collect that?
I believe that is denoting the pair of shoes. Yes, I did.
Okay. And to go to a better picture for photo marker number 9, did you collect the item at photo marker number 9?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That is a cell phone.
As to photo marker number 10, did you collect the 2 Sprite cans that were there?
Yes, I did.
Going on to the rear of the vehicle, photo markers 12, 13, and 14. Did you collect the various items listed in this photo?
Yes, I did.
Did you have help and assistance in processing this vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Who helped you?
Crime scene technician Tara Carroll.
Did you guys have a plan of attack as to how to process the vehicle?
We split up the vehicle into certain sections, and each processed those areas of the vehicle and collected the items that were in relation to those areas.
So it's clear to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what section were you assigned?
I was assigned to the driver's side of the vehicle.
In your report, how did you write down which side you were responsible for?
In In the report, it shows that swabs were taken from the passenger side of the vehicle, which was which was incorrect in the report, and was later shown as a correction in the primary receipts, as well as the original swab boxes that were collected on scene.
So let's stop for a second there and explain when you're collecting swabs, what are you doing?
I am using sterile distilled water and placing that onto a cotton swab and passing that over, rubbing that over an area that in which I either believe there may be the presence of DNA, and that area is processed with the swab, then placed inside a sterile swab box, and on that swab box I notate where that item was, or what item was swabbed with those swabs.
So let's go very minute, detail by detail. First thing you do is what? When you're getting the swab and you're ready to swab an area. Do you change your gloves?
Correct.
I want very precise.
Yes. I get my new pair of gloves out of the box and take the new sterile swab, open the swab packaging that is sealed and sterile, and open up a new sealed container of sterile water, and that water is then placed in drop form on the top of the swab, and then the swab is then rubbed over the area in which I intend to process.
Do you ever dip the swab back into the sterile water and sort of double dipping, for lack of a better term?
No, I do not.
Okay. After you swab the area, what's the next step you take?
The swab box is opened, the swabs are put inside the swab box, and then that swab box is closed, and then I notate on the swab box what item was processed with the swabs.
Do you complete the property receipt at that same time?
I do not.
When do you complete your property receipt?
The property receipt is completed later on in the office when the item is then going to be submitted to the Evidence Bureau.
When do you do your report?
The report is done following, usually when all work is done.
Okay. So in terms of the most accurate description of what is that swab is of, what would that be?
The note on the swab box.
Okay. So going back to the photos, and in terms of the process and the timing, when you're doing the swabs, is it before these photos, after these photos, just so the jury understands the way you process the car?
The way I process it is I remove all items that are deemed as evidence, and I remove those from the vehicle. And then prior to any other processing, whether that be latent prints, the car is processed for possible DNA, and then from there to latent prints.
And to be clear, did you do any of the latent prints in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Moving on to the pictures with item markers or photo markers 10, 11, 16 here. Were those items 16, 11 collected?
Yes, they were.
And forgive me. In terms of the numbers and the item numbers, was there a time or a number that you collected 1 through 15, 1 through 20, the items, and Ms. Carroll collected the others?
Yes, there were.
And do you recall which specific photo markers and items you were responsible for collecting?
I would have to refer to my report.
Would you looking at your report and refresh your recollection as to that?
Yes, it would.
If I may approach that?
Yes.
Can you refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, that being said, I'll ask again. Which items or photo markers were you responsible for collecting numerically?
Items 12 through 20 were the items that I collected.
In terms of these photographs, they were all taken by you. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Moving on to item number 18 and 17. Did you collect those two?
Yes, I did.
19 and 20 as shown here. Did you collect those?
Yes, I did.
What are we looking at in this photo here?
This photo shows the trunk portion of the vehicle with the hatch covering the spare tire removed.
The processing here again at the what location of the car on this photo or next one?
This is the front driver's side floorboard.
Okay, you have, and what photo marker is here?
19.
So what are we looking at here underneath the brake pedal?
That I believe is a spent projectile.
Is that then marked with photo marker number 24 that we're looking at in this photo?
Yes, it is.
And item number 23, the glasses case. You were documenting that? Sorry.
Correct.
On to photo marker number 25. Did you take these images here?
Yes, I did.
Photo marker 26. Did you take those?
Yes, I did.
Are these the items that were in the glove box?
Yes, they are.
In terms of this enterprise receipt that we're looking at here, does that vehicle description listed on this enterprise receipt and VIN number match the Jeep Compass that you've been looking at?
No, they do not.
And the name of the individual who rented this vehicle, was that on this enterprise receipt? On the, and not the Jeep Compass, my apologies, I'll rephrase. The enterprise receipt, did it have a name of a renter on it?
Yes, it did.
And what was that?
Jamerson Francois.
I'm going to move on to the next photo here. What have you done to document the scene in this photo inside this Jeep?
In this photo, it shows trajectory rods that were placed inside of the projectile defects to show an approximate path of the projectile.
Excuse me, can we approach?
Sure.
Okay. Investigator Carter, as you were saying, explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what are these green, red items that are now in the back seat of the Jeep?
These are called trajectory rods, and like I said, they are used to show the approximate path of the projectile when it struck the surface.
How many trajectory rods are in this photo that we're looking at here?
There are 7.
Going forward to the next photograph, what are we looking at here?
This is the opposite side of the rear passenger side seat, showing the trajectory rods coming.
Objection. Same objection?
Yes, sir.
Overruled.
Again, showing what?
Showing the trajectory rods coming through the back of the rear passenger seat and through to the front of the rear passenger side seat.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you place them?
The trajectory rods are placed through one defect, pass through the object, and then through the other defect on the opposite side.
Going forward to this next photo, all the other items of evidence have been removed. So I want to go for time frame. How long after the initial processing are we talking where you're doing these trajectory rods?
I do not have time for that.
When we're looking at this photo here, what are we looking at?
This is the rear driver's side interior door and floorboard seat.
Looking here at this photo, what are you documenting and where is it in relation to that last photo?
I am documenting a projectile defect that was in the door jamb of the rear driver's side door.
And so I'm going to go back to the last photo. If you could circle a couple of times on the screen the area that you are photographing in the next photograph. Okay. And going to the opposite angle view of that. Can you again circle the defect so it's clear? And to get this photo, how did you have to position the rear driver's side door?
The door had to be fully opened and the defect had to be photographed from looking from the inside of the vehicle out.
So going on to the next photograph here, you mentioned prior that there was a projectile on the seat that you recovered.
Correct.
Is this the process you had to undertake?
Yes, it was.
What did you do? Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I used a scalpel to remove the top layer of the leather, and it showed a projectile that was situated inside the front of the seat.
Is this another view of that process?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you assign a photo marker to that item and collect it?
Yes, I did.
And what are we looking at this image?
This is an image of the projectile as it was removed from the phone to be fully photographed.
Okay. So those 65 photos that you took at the processing of the Jeep, is that, and we've gone through all of those. I want to move on now to the photos that you took of the items of evidence that you collected. Investigator Carter. I'm now showing you what's going to mark the state's EE for identification purposes. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I do.
Did you have an opportunity to review them before you came into court today?
I do.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the processing that you did of the items collected from the Jeep?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, at this time, the state requesting of states EE in as states 31.
Any objection?
No objection, but with the same representation that the disc contains only those photos.
That is correct, Your Honor.
No problem.
They'll be admitted with that representation.
States EE, mark states 31.
And that is 21 photos. So starting here at item number 12, what are we looking at here?
This is the yellow jacket that was collected from the trunk of the vehicle.
What, in terms of the item number 12 that's on here as well, is that the same yellow jacket?
Yes, it was.
Is the number 12 consistent every time you're using or photographing something from photo marker number 12?
Correct.
The other item that we see on here, kind of the L-shaped gray and white, what is that?
That is a scale.
What's the purpose of having that in your photographs?
The scale shows the size of the item that you're looking to document, and the scale also has parameters on it that allow it to be fixed if not taken at the correct angle.
Understood. Moving on to the next photo, is this the opposite side of item number 12?
Yes.
What do you do in between items to ensure that there's no cross-contamination?
In between items, the paper on the floor where the item is placed is changed every single time, and my gloves are changed in between touching my camera and going back to the evidence.
When you say the paper that's down there, what is that? What specific type of paper do you use?
It's called a brown craft paper.
Is it ever reused during the course of the case?
No, it is not.
Moving on to the next photo, what are we looking at here?
That is a sock, a Jeep Compass user guide, and a box.
And what photo marker were these documented at the previous set of photos?
Photo marker 13.
Going on to this next photo, still at photo marker 13. What are you showing here?
I am showing the opposite side of both the sock and the Jeep Compass user manual and the interior of the box.
Moving on to item number 15. That is what?
That is a disposable lighter.
Did the Miramar Police Department policies and procedures allow you to maintain that item in evidence?
No,
Why not?
because of the combustible nature of the liquid inside.
So the documentation of this evidence is just the photographs.
That is correct.
Moving on to item 16. What photo marker were these items documented under?
Photo marker 16.
And what are we looking at here?
This is a belt, a disposable lighter, a pair of scissors, and a blue container.
Inside the blue container, based on your training and experience, what did that substance appear to be?
I observed a green leafy substance inside of the container.
Did it have any odor associated with it?
I do not recall.
Moving on to the next item number, what are we looking at here?
This is a Gatorade bottle with red stains on it.
And what photo marker was it documented at?
Photo marker 17.
Moving on to the next photo marker, what are we looking at here?
This is a water bottle, I believe a black plastic cap, a Gatorade bottle, also with red stains on it, and a white plastic bag with red stains, and containing a green plastic cap and a spent bullet casing.
Moving on on to the next photo. Where was this casing located when you took the item out of the car?
The casing was located in a white plastic bag that was found on the rear driver's side floorboard.
Was it visible until you removed the bag?
No, it was not.
Moving on to this next photo with the scale and the large number 18. What are we looking at here?
This is a closer-up photo of the spent cartridge casing that was collected from the white plastic bag.
And if you'd be so kind as to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is on the next photo that we're looking at and have zoomed in on.
This is the head stamp of the spent cartridge casing that reads Blazer 40 S&W.
And I'm not going to assume anyone is familiar with firearms or anything of that. So could you please give the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is a bullet cartridge or an unfired bullet?
A unfired bullet comprises of a projectile that is in the front end of the cartridge casing, and the cartridge casing comprises of gunpowder, a primer, and when the primer is struck, the gunpowder there's an explosion that happens within the cartridge casing, expelling the projectile.
In a revolver, what happens to the casing, the cartridge casing that we're looking at here?
The cartridge casing stays within the cylinder.
If it is a semi-automatic firearm or automatic firearm, what happens to the casing?
The spent cartridge casing is ejected through the ejection port on the semi-automatic weapon.
So the projectile that we're looking at in some of the other photos, that would be contained with a casing to make a unfired bullet.
Sorry, repeat that?
So for some of the projectiles that you've seen in the other photos that you documented, like for example at photo marker 7 and 24 on those would be part of an unfired bullet along with a casing.
Correct.
Moving on to the next item that you collected. What were these?
These are 2 white sandals and a blue plastic container.
Is this a different blue plastic container than the one that was in the back seat?
I do not recall.
When determining the contents of this blue plastic container, what did you observe inside?
I observed an unknown green leafy substance.
Moving on to item number 20. Where were these items recovered from?
These were at photo marker 22. To know where in the vehicle they were collected, I would have to refer to my report.
Understood. So after those photos were taken, I want to now move on to the items that you actually collected.